couple of years ago, somebody looked at the tattoo that I have on my right wrist and concluded that I must be recently divorced. That made me chuckle because at the time I was 20 years old and had never even been in a serious relationship before, much less been married and divorced. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized the words "it is finished" tattooed on my wrist actually could be viewed as a kind of divorce. This is my story on my struggle with doubt, the answer I got from God, and what He taught me through it. Well, I'm a Christian, and my struggle with doubt begins about as soon as I started following Jesus. Now, maybe that sounds like a contradiction, but at least it's an honest one. Merriam-Webster defines doubt as follows: to lack confidence in or be uncertain about. For me, I didn't lack confidence that God was real, that I was a sinner in need of a Savior, or that Jesus was that Savior. But I was very uncertain about if I was truly a Christian. I had tried to build my life on one foundation, knowing Jesus and making Him known. So for me to doubt if I was His was to doubt my very reason for living. I wrestled with the ideas of heaven and hell, hypocrisy and faith, and feeling abandoned by a God who seemed so silent in the face of my fears. It felt like the lights had gone out, and that left me an absolute wreck. I remember writing in my journal that I felt hopeless and alone, like I was barely holding on. The book of James describes a doubter like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind, double-minded and unstable in all his ways. That was a pretty accurate description. Did God still love me, and could He save me from myself? Through years of struggle and tears, I started to hear His answer. Now, God's answer might seem strange because it came in the form of a dying man. You see, when Jesus died on the cross, it was for the doubters like me, and His answer was, "It is finished." He had known the darkest parts of my heart and still chosen to make my forgiveness possible when He gave His life in exchange for mine. And now He said that He had already overthrown my doubts at that cross, years before I even had the breath with which to doubt Him. And if my currently broken reality had changed His mind about loving me, then He wouldn't have written it in His Word. He wouldn't have died for me to break the power of the sin and the shame that hung over me. Jesus had made up His mind about me, and nothing I did could change that. He made His choice when He said, "It is finished." All that was left was for me to trust Him. I finally began to get a glimpse of why He let me struggle for so long in what felt like darkness, because there was great value in those lessons that struggle taught me. It's why I got the words "it is finished" tattooed on my wrist, to remind me of those lessons every time I'm tempted to doubt again. It taught me to ask scary questions, face fear, acknowledge doubt. I learned that there's space before the throne of God to struggle deeply, to pray honestly about the depths of my pain and confusion. It taught me that even on my darkest days, when depression grips my heart and failure marks my soul, there is hope because His love has still more grace. And the very struggle I thought would destroy me ended up being God's means of deliverance. It was finished when Jesus died on that cross, and it's still finished for me today. So that's my struggle with doubt, God's answer back, and what it taught me. That's why I have "it is finished" tattooed on my wrist, to remind me that Jesus is a Savior stronger than my doubts, wiser than my questions, more trustworthy than my feelings, and more competent at seeking and saving than I have ever been at running and hiding. And that is the story of how I am not divorced, except for maybe something called doubt.